Anyway, enough from me. It gives me absolute enormous pleasure to introduce you to our main act for this evening. Please put your hands together and welcome once again to Mauchline, the Gorms.
Is there for honest poverty that hangs his heed, and that the coward slave will pass him by? We dare be poor for all that, and all that, our toils obscure, and all that, the rank is but the Guinness stamp, the man's the gowd for all that. What though unhamely fare we ride, with hand-grave and all that, he fools their silks, knaves their wine, a man's a man for all that, and all that, their tinsel show, and all that, the honest.
Anciently pronounced and sometimes spelt Affleck, Auchinleck is Boswell country. One of James IV's most trusted courtiers, Thomas Boswell, was beside the king in death at the Battle of Flodden Field in 1513. Boswell married the Auchinleck heiress in 1504 and was granted the estate by the king.
We something to warm your cockles, Mr. Weir?
Give some of that.
Aye. Tak a cup of kindness yet, lads, eh? Lands in the Douglas Water were thought to be granted to a Fleming in the 13th century. His descendants named the township and castle and themselves Douglas. It would fast become the most powerful name in Scotland. The good Sir James Douglas, loyal commander of Robert I, was the man to establish Douglas power. He is also the man who in 1307 burned Douglas Castle to the ground, and the English garrison based inside it. In the 19th century, coal mining came to Douglas, and the subsequent subsidence led to the demolition of Douglas Castle in the year 1937.
The principal coalfields in Scotland fall largely within a diagonal tract of land about 30 miles wide, running roughly southwest from both sides of the Firth of Forth across to the Ayrshire coast. This area contains the historical coalfields of Fife, Clackmannan, Stirlingshire, the Lothians, Kirkintilloch, Lanarkshire, Renfrewshire and Ayrshire. The eastern fields, especially Fife and Mid Lothian, were the first to gain importance. Records pertaining to Newbattle Abbey demonstrate mining on an economic scale from at least the 13th century. In the 18th century, demand for coal increased as more and more coal-using industries, such as lime preparation, glass and vitriol making, and most importantly, after the 1760 example of the Carron Company, coke-fired ironworks. Well, expansion continued through the 19th and early 20th centuries, with Lanarkshire emerging as the most productive field. But since 1918, however, Scottish experience has mirrored the rest of Britain. A decline in demand as the old basic industries dwindle and disappear. On the 1st of January 1947, under Labour nationalisation policies, the state acquired the coal mines and a stringent programme of pit closures began. Oil and gas would monopolise government thinking from the 1970s. Though, to this day, a much smaller coal industry still fights for electricity contracts.
For all that and all that, it's coming yet. For all that, when man to man the world o'er shall brothers be for all.
8 miles southeast of Kilmarnock lies the village of Mauchline, hallowed ground to Burns lovers. It was during his 9-year tenancy of Mossgiel Farm, just to the north, that he penned many of his most famous lines.
I a Jacobites by name, Lindoneer, Lindoneer. You Jacobites by name, Lindoneer. You Jacobites by name, your faults I will proclaim. Your doctrines I unblame. You shall hear, you shall hear. Your doctrines I unblame. You shall hear. What is right and what is wrong? By the law, by the law. What is right and what is wrong? By the law. What is right and what is wrong? A short sword and a long, a weak arm and a strong, for to draw, for to draw. A weak arm and a strong, for to draw. You Jacobites by name, Lindoneer, Lindoneer. You Jacobites by name, Lindoneer. You Jacobites by name, your faults I will proclaim. Your doctrines I'm unlain, you shall hear, you shall hear. Your doctrines I'm unlain, you shall hear. What makes heroic strife? Famed of har, famed of har. What makes heroic strife? Famed of har. What makes heroic strife?
Here stands the handsome Gothic-style parish church of 1829. But its predecessor was the lumpish, plain, sombre kirk in which Mauchline-born Jean Armour and Burns were publicly rebuked by the Reverend Daddy Auld for their sins. And here in Castle Street is where the two set up home after their marriage in Mauchline Castle.
Burns' cantata, Love and Liberty, now known as the Jolly Beggars, was born on a trip to Pussy Nancy's when Burns had as companions the notorious Court of Equity, one John Richmond and James Smith. After witnessing much jollity amongst a company who by day appeared as miserable beggars, Burns and his friends came away, the poet expressing much amusement, especially at the ongoings of an old maimed soldier. A few days later, Burns recited the first draft of the poem to Richmond. Even Matthew Arnold, the 19th century journalist from England, so critical of Burns, wrote, "When the largeness and freedom of Burns gets full sweep, as in Tam O'Shanter, or still more, in that puissant and splendid production, The Jolly Beggars, there is more than hideousness and squalor. There is bestiality, yet the piece is a superb poetic success. It has breadth, truth and power, which makes the famous scenes in Auerbach's cellar of Goethe's Faust seem artificial and tame beside it, and which are matched only by Shakespeare and Aristophanes."
And here, at Pussy Nancy's cottage in 1785, is where Burns observed that merry core of randy gangrel bodies, the Jolly Beggars.
The cantata records a beggar's revel in a low dive. Quite a number of vagabonds were at the carousal, and Burns gives a song to 6 of them.